As you've been reading The City of Ember this week, you've been practicing asking questions. So hopefully you already have some literal questions, some inferential questions, some Google or expert questions, and some discussion or theme questions. So today you're going to practice categorizing your questions in the question quadrant. Remember that the questions that are at the top of the question quadrant have to be about the book. So these two here, you must be talking about the characters or the setting or the plot. But when we come down to the bottom half of the quadrant, we're looking at questions that are about the world. So there shouldn't be any character names or anything about the plot in these questions. It's about applying what you know to the real world and asking questions about that. Another thing to remember are what you know about closed and open questions. So on this side of the quadrant, all of your questions usually only have one answer. Whereas over here, you might be able to imagine a few different answers, or you might have to discuss with lots of different people to work out what all the different answers to your question are. So these are the four that I came up with. For our literal question, I've written, what animal is the book about? Pretty easy to answer. There's pictures of it on the front. It's even called Penguin Problems. So we've only got one answer, and it's right there in the text. If we move over to inferential questions, the question I wrote was, why does the walrus have a good attitude? Now, we don't really know why he has a good attitude. It could be a few different things. Maybe he woke up and he had a good breakfast, or maybe his parents taught him to look on the bright side of things. So we could imagine or infer that there are a number of different reasons for the walrus's attitude. Okay, remember, the top two quadrants are about the characters in the book or the book itself. So when we move down here, we're going towards our world questions. So my question for my world, or my Google expert question, is how many penguins are there in Antarctica? So the answer there would probably be a number, and you could probably Google it or ask an expert about it. And finally, the hardest questions to write, and also probably the most important questions, are our discussion or theme questions. So I thought this book was a bit about looking on the bright side and about having a positive attitude. So I wrote the question, are people who look on the bright side happier? So you might ask me that question and I might have an answer, and I might have a reason for my answer, but you might ask mum or dad something, the same question, and they might have a completely different answer, or maybe even a completely different reason. So usually in this one here, it requires discussion to find the answer and to see what people think. So that's what our discussion or theme questions are. And they're usually about what's going on in the story as a whole.